This is particularly for those of you who are teenagers and those of you who are in their 20s and 30s. So I'm thinking about Gen Z and millennials and how this might just change your entire life. So we have this, so in this case, let's just pretend you're making $24,000 a year in take-home pay. So you graduate, I'm going to talk about being 22. You've either graduated from college or about to, or you went straight into the workplace. And if you're grossing enough to net $24,000 a year, you could be working full-time at Target at $15 an hour. That'll get you to the numbers I'm talking about. All right, so $2,000 a month take-home pay, and you're going to set aside $200 a month for your long-term future, for what's going to happen way down the road. That sounds like it's an almost impossible thought, but I want you to hold on to that for just a second. So as we're thinking about retirement, most of us dream of the day when we're going to be able to stop working full-time in order to supply our needs. And then once we retire from working full-time, we retire to something. And so we have dreams about what we might do. And once more, the question, what really matters to me, should fit into your retirement plans. So when I retire and I don't have to work 40 or 50 hours a week at a job to pay the bills, what really matters to me then? What do I want to be doing, and what does retirement look like for me? And so we begin thinking about that, and that includes, of course, still in retirement, loving God and loving our neighbor and serving other people and caring for our family. And then somewhere in there also the leisure activities that are going to bring pleasure to our lives. All right, so when we know that that's on the horizon, and that could be a third of your life, it may be more than a third of your life. People, other than through COVID, life expectancies are expected to continue to go up. And so you retire, you've got another 20, 30 years. In the case of Julia, she had another 40 years after retirement so far. And so we think about, how do we fund that? How do we take care of ourselves? Many people think, well, Social Security is the answer to that. It's, I'm going to get my Social Security when I retire. So let me just remind you of some things that you probably already know. The average person in the United States earns $1,543 a month on Social Security. That's $18,000 a year. It's hard to live on $18,000 a year. You can do it, but it's very, very hard. The average household expense in retirement is about $4,000 per month. About $4,000 per month. So $48,000 a year. Social Security is solvent until the year 2037. So we think there's enough money in the trust fund to provide full benefits until the year 2037. After that, benefits are going to have to be cut by somewhere around 20%, or more taxes are going to have to be paid in. So we know these are facts, and we know that Social Security was never intended to provide all of your retirement needs. Social Security was intended to provide 40% of what you would need in retirement. So where's the other 60% come from? Now, according to a recent PricewaterhouseCoopers report, 25% of Americans have saved nothing for retirement. This includes 42% of all 18 to 29-year-olds who have saved nothing for retirement. Now, that doesn't surprise me, the 42% who have saved nothing for retirement who are 18 to 29-year-olds. What surprised me was that 58% of 18 to 29-year-olds had started saving for retirement. So I want you to just catch that in your mind, that if you're not there yet and you haven't started, more than half of all young adults, 18 to 29, have already started saving for retirement. So this is something that you need to be thinking about, like, how can I set that as a goal? How do I set that as a priority? Because I can imagine down the road how much this is going to change my life, how much it's going to help me fulfill my purpose when I'm older. So I want to just give you a couple of pictures of what this might look like. Well, first of all, before I do that, on the other end of the age spectrum, so people my age, so baby boomers, and I'm the last of the baby boomers. I'm 57, and many of the baby boomers have already retired. But the folks who are 55 to 64 years old and are approaching retirement, the average amount they have set aside in their retirement funds is $120,000. That sounds like a ton of money. $120,000 set aside for retirement. Let me just remind you of how this works when you're retired. What you're intended to do is to take somewhere between 4 and 5% out of your retirement funds each year as you're seeking to live on that. And that's going to then allow it to last, until the end of your life. So if you take 5% of $120,000, you're going to take $6,000 a year out of that $120,000 each year for it to sustain you to the end of your life. So you're going to add $6,000 to the $18,000 you get from Social Security if you are receiving the average Social Security, and you're at $24,000 a year, which is going to be really hard to live on. So it's better than having just the $18,000. And so if you've got $120,000 and you're my age, way to go. You got something in there. But I want to say to those of you who are younger adults that it's possible for you to do better than that if you think about this. So let's go back to the 10% you save for retirement. And as we think about that, again, if your take-home pay is $24,000 a year, that's $2,000 a month, and you set aside 10% for retirement, you're $200 a month. So let's just take that number, and some of you will do a lot better than that, but let's just take that number, $200 a month, and we're going to set that aside for retirement. Now, if you do that over the course of your career, so I want to show you what this looks like. You start at the age of 22. You've just graduated from college, or you've been in the workplace for a few years if you didn't go to college, and you're setting aside $200 a month, and you start early at 22, and you do that for the rest of your life, and you're an 8% interest in the stock market. Since 1919, the stock market, thanks to some great performance the last couple of years, has earned an average of 10% over that period of time. So let's just say 8%, which is a little more conservative than what has actually happened. And if you're investing in a fund that covers the sort of S&P 500, 8% seems pretty reasonable. And so you've done this. Let me just show you what happens. Here we go. So this starts at age 22. If you're starting at age 22 and you invest $200 a month and you have 8% earnings that you've made, 8% interest compounded every year, what you're going to find is when you retire, I'm presuming that 69 will be the end of your work life, so you're going to retire at age 70, because I think that's what Social Security will require by the time you 22-year-olds are ready to retire. You're going to have $1,374,000 in your retirement account. Now, the power of that comes in these last few years when your income is increasing by 8% a year, and you've got a pretty good-sized corpus. If you wait until you're 35 to start this, you're going to invest the same $200 a month, you're going to make the same 8% interest, and by the time you retire at the same age, you're going to have $484,969 in your retirement account. That's the difference between starting at 22 and starting at 35. Now let's just say you waited till you were 45 and you started putting $200 a month in, you're going to find that you have a total value of $207,000 in your retirement account. You wait till you're 55, you're going to have $78,000. Now listen, if you've waited till you're 55, do something now. That's better than not having anything. But look at what happens when you have said, I'm going to make this a priority as a young person, and I'm going to take 10%, and I'm going to start putting that away and saving that for my retirement. Suddenly you have a whole different trajectory for the last third of your life. A hugely different trajectory into what you can do to fulfill your purpose, how you can live your life, how you bless other people. It's all changed when you begin making a priority early on of saving for retirement. All right, I want to just show you one other thing here. Oh, by the way, when you look at this chart, the difference in what this person invested and this person invested is only $30,000. These people invested only $30,000 less than these people, but the difference in what they've earned is $900,000. That's because compound interest as you go towards this being in there for 13 more years than the folks who started later on at age 35. Let's take a look at this. So it's possible you get to age 30 and you've got a pay increase and you're making a lot more money. And let's just say you're making $60,000 a year and your take-home pay is around $5,000 a month. Actually, make it a little more than that to get a take-home pay of $5,000 a month. And you say, I'm going to increase from the $200 per month to $500 per month at the age of 30. So you're giving $200 a month until the age of 30, and then at the age of 30, you increase that by $300 a month. And what you're going to find at 8% is by the time you retire, you have $2,466,000. You've almost doubled what's happened if you stick with the 10% as your income continues to increase. And so this is a very simple idea. It requires that you delay gratification in some areas. You get a lesser car, you don't spend as much money on other things, maybe you don't buy quite as nice a house as you might have bought otherwise, but you're investing in the future, and you're going to have an amazing future, at least when it comes to being able to afford to do the things you'd want to do, because you followed a budget that looked like the 10-20-70 budget.